Welcome back to AD 128. Today, as we continue our studies on how to do individual therapy, I'm going to back up a little bit, and I'm going to go and review some personality theories. We did a good bit of them last week, but this week what I want to do is a few more, maybe to help you out with your paper a little bit in choosing your theoretical basis and your theorist. Remember what the paper is about. I don't need to reiterate it. You already know and you have the directions, so please work diligently in your paper, okay? So let's continue right now. So let's work on the different types of personality theories. So the first one we're going to take a look at is our old friend Sigmund Freud. So Sigmund believed that one's personality is determined by a collection of early experiences that occurred within the first 5 to 6 years of life. So for the first 5 to 6 years of life, this is when everything was developed. Stimulus happened from the outside into the infant, into the child, and as stimulus happens, what occurred is the child, the infant, would be picking up all kinds of ways of living. So they learn their behaviors, they learn their personality type of structure and formed, their interaction methods, and the pathologies happen during that period of time. All right? So during the first 5 years of their life, first 5 to 6 years. So people go through what he called 5 stages of development of life, and these are called the 5 psychosexual stages of development. Everything, according to Freud, had to deal with what he called the libido, or the sex drive. So everything was psychosexually stimulating. So therefore, everything that happened was done for a reason. So the goal of psychotherapy was to have the patient work through. This is called the working through phase of repressed conflicts by gaining mental or intellectual or conscious intellectual, is another word for Freud, for conscious awareness of the conflict. So basically what this means is that as a child was growing up, the child had different things in front of them that they had to work through. So if they had disagreements, how do you learn to work through disagreements? How do you say thank you for people? How do you greet people? How do you talk? How do you interact? How much of a narcissist are you going to become? What's going to happen with all of that stuff, right? So during these first, from about 5 to 6 years of life, all of this was being developed. And we would model, the children would model from their parents. So there's 5 stages: anal, oral, phallic, genital, and latency phase. Those were the 5, is where this person developed their stages. So the oral stage, this is where the sucking instinct came in. Everything was oral, everything was through the mouth. This is where the pleasure principle started. So as life continued, if you didn't go through that phase, then you usually had difficulties dealing with the oral tradition. For example, the oral phase. For example, he would see cigars or smoking a cigarette as an oral fixation. You dig in of gratification, oral gratification from the things that you did. So you had to rely on maybe smoking a cigarette or smoking a cigar. But sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Anal phase. Have you ever heard the term anal retention, where you hold everything inside? Well, this usually happens, according to Freudian theory, if somebody is scared or frightened and they need to hold back because they don't know how to process, how to work through things. So instead of processing and working through things, you hold it in. So you hold your emotions in. And the more you hold your emotions in and you learn to hold your emotions in, the more neurotic you become, or the more sick you become. So during the anal phase of development, this is where you learn to control things also. The baby learns how to control their bowels so that they don't just poo or pee whenever they feel like it. They get a little discomfort in the inside, and now it comes, and it's time to change a diaper or 3. Well, if you don't go through that stage, you're not going to really know how to manage all the material that you're processing inside. So the stuff that's really rotting on you on the inside, your behaviors, your attitudes, you don't like somebody, you're just going to let it out. You're not going to have any filters. And that's a problem, right? Have you ever come upon a person that just says what they want to say right off the top and they don't think about your feelings or anybody else's? Freud would sit there and say, well, he's got a anal fixation, right? Because he doesn't know how to hold things in. This is the stage in life where you learn how to hold things in, where you learn how to control your bowels, you can learn how to control things, and you unload or you empty yourself at the appropriate times. This takes training. If you had no toilet training as an infant, chances are you're not going to be able to have enough toilet training as an adult. You may or may not poo your pants or something like that. It's neither here nor there. But when I say you don't have enough toilet training, you won't know how to hold onto your stuff. You'll just let it out, and that causes a lot of social problems, personal problems, interactive problems. So you need to work through that. Phallic stage is the stage of development for Freud, where you start to explore yourself, right? Men and women start to masturbate at a certain time. They start to understand, they explore their bodies and start to get different types of pleasure centers. They know what they like. They begin to learn what they don't like. Everything focuses around there. If you don't get through this stage, where the self-exploration stage and all that, if you don't get through it, then what winds up happening is you have a very difficult time with interpersonal relationships, for example, and many other things, but let's just talk about interpersonal relationships since we're talking about counseling. You have difficulty with interpersonal relationships, difficulty with communicating. You start to have sexual conflicts on the inside. Am I male, female? Back in those days, it was you had a problem if you were gay or lesbian. That's because you didn't work through the stage, the genital stage. Lots of issues, lots of problems, lots of conflicts. So you had to work through that. Interpersonal interaction with people of the opposite sex, right? Because remember back then, it was male and female. That's it. There was no such thing as homosexual relationships or marriages. So if you did have homosexual tendencies, you were sick, and you had to work through it, and therefore you had to work through that stage in life. So the phallic stage also dealt with that. Phallic stage, again, men become men, women become women. You begin to explore another person's body as well as your own. Sexual relationships start to happen. They increase. The libido starts to get hungry, and you start to have relationships with your partner, whoever you're choosing is. If you don't get through this stage, the phallic stage in life, what ends up happening is you have very bad sex drives, and you probably won't have a sex drive, or if you do, you can be hypersexual, too much sex, or too little sex, or no sex, you become asexual. And this is all different types of conflicts that one has based on their interactions and their stimuli from the outside. Maybe they weren't allowed to feel, maybe they weren't allowed to experience the joys of sex when they were in adolescence or early adulthood or whatever, or maybe they were guilt-ridden. Some religions, the Catholic Church, you don't have sex until you're married, period, that's it. So what do you do with that? All right, so you have an individual that's repressed, as Freud would say, and the more repressed they are, the more hidden their drives are. And as that repression happens, as it pushes things down, pathology comes out: depressions, anxieties, tensions, etc. Oral, anal, phallic, genital. And the last is latency. Latency comes later on in life, usually late teen years, early 20s. And during that time, things are quelled. Latency, this is what we used to call the late bloomer, where things come out at a later time. And if your sex drives come out later, your interpersonal relationships come out later, you're older in life, your anal retentiveness eventually starts to work itself through, but it can also be a problematic phase. In the latency phase of development, according to Freud, we take a look at things that are very late in arriving for us. So this is the adolescent who maybe during puberty has a late puberty. The one that is shorter instead of taller, so the classmates are ridiculing them. The one that just isn't up to par, isn't up to snuff with their peers. This can cause some rudimentary problems. It can cause things like jealousies amongst peers. Bullying happens during this time. Latency, also repressed feelings and repressed emotions. So this is where homosexuality was taken a look at, lesbianism was taken a look at during this time. So all of your feelings have been buried and repressed, and you're told to, a boy loves a girl, and a girl loves a boy, and a boy doesn't love a boy, and a girl doesn't love a girl. That's really weird and strange and all this. And you learn that, and you repress it, and you bury it. So the latency stage, this starts to come out, and you start to realize that, hey, guess what? I'm a guy, and I like other guys. I'm a girl, and I like other girls. And geez, is that normal? Is it not normal? So we have some conflicts going on there, intrapsychic, intrasexual conflicts. And you got to work through it. Once you work through it, then you become a well-developed person. The other thing with psychoanalysis is this isn't just for 2 months. Psychoanalysis is a lifelong thing. Interesting thing about Freud is he analyzed himself. All right? I don't recommend that. I recommend that you get a trained psychotherapist. So the relationship between the psychotherapist and the patient is anonymous. They never self-disclose. A lot of times in addiction studies, we sit there and we say, one of the things that a therapist should do is, feel free to disclose yourself within reason. No, not here. You don't. The patient needs to know nothing about you. You are a blank slate. A lot of times what would happen is if there was a therapeutic session, let's say this was a couch. You've heard of a couch. Well, this is how it worked. Here was the couch. Patient's head was here, feet were over there, right? So the therapist would sit behind the couch, behind the person's head, and do certain techniques like free association or some other techniques to explore what's going on with the person. So the person would just come in, and maybe Freud would start with the sentence, right? The big brown fox, please complete the sentence. And the person would just free associate. Jumped over the fence and chased after the rabbit that ran into the rabbit hole, and the fox scurried around and scratched it, and will go on and on about your story. In the meantime, the analyst will be writing all this stuff down, and then occasionally asking some questions, but pretty much letting the person free associate. Sometimes they would come in and just sit down, and first thing that comes to your mind, thanks for coming in, so tell me what we can do today. And you would sit there in silence, and the person would just say the first thing that comes to their mind and keep going for the entire session. They would analyze it and work through the issues and the problems and all that stuff. So again, the therapist would remain very, very quiet, and that's it. So techniques, open-ended questions, and interpretations are often based on dream analysis, free association, and various tests like the ink blot test. Dream analysis is very interesting. I used to do some of that stuff. Dream analysis. We have these, you have dreams, you write them down. After you write them down, you go to a therapist, and you sit there and you say, I had this dream, this is what it was about. And you talk about the dreams. Now, what he believes is every part of that dream that you have is you. So if you dream about a yellow color, that yellow color is you. So what part of you is yellow? There's a car in the dream that's going down the hill quick. Well, that car is you, and so is the hill. What part of that car is you? What is in control? What is it that's containing you? Because a car contains, and it's a yellow car. So what does yellow containment mean for you? And going down the hill, can you stop the car? Well, I can't stop it. The brakes don't work. What's that about? We will explore different things, and this would be written down, and dreams would be interpreted using different types of symbols that are in the dreams. Carl Jung, a colleague of Freud, these two eventually split, also did great interpretations of dream analysis. The difference is Carl Jung was a Christian therapist. Freud was atheist. So Freud is going to come from an atheistic point of view, so everything he says has got nothing to do with God, whereas Jung would come in and interpret things with a theological background if it applied, right? So the other thing is free association we talked about, and various things such as an ink blot test. There are two of them, the Rorschach and Howard. They're basically, if you take a piece of paper and you take ink and you pour a little ink on the paper, close the paper, squeeze it together, open it up and say, tell me what you see. There's your ink blot. That's the Rorschach. They were just black and white. Howard ink blot, he would dot with different colors, close it up, open it up and say, tell me what you see. And you describe what you see. Basically, this is to tap into the unconscious. So you're making up a story about the ink blot, and everything that you see on the ink blot, again, is a reflection of repressed emotions, things that happen inside. Freud would take a look at this, would analyze it with its 5 stages, oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital stages, and sit there and say, this is where you are in life, this is what's happening, this is how you work through it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there were projective tests. So there were plenty of them. You've got the ink blot test, you've got the Bender-Gestalt test where you draw certain designs, and we talk about that. That deals with cognitive processing and cognitive damage. If you have any brain damage, will be picked up in that projective test, and there are a whole bunch of others that we don't need to know. But these are some ways, these are some techniques that Freud would use and the analysts would use in dealing with patients. So it's a therapy that's used for people who want to become therapists, people who want to go further in intellectual development after having intensive therapy, as well as those who are suffering intellectually. So Freud was an intellectual when he treated people who were intellectuals. If you want to do psychoanalysis, you have to be intellectual to do it. So they said. Okay? So look up Freudian analysis if this is yours, because I'm just going to go primer right now, and we'll see where it goes. The next one was Carl Rogers. In person-centered therapy, it's also known as client-centered therapy, CCT. This was really big when I was going to school, back in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, I'm an old man, okay? Back in the 70s and 80s, Carl Rogers was really, really big, and he was very much different, even though his background was also psychoanalysis. He threw a lot of psychoanalytic stuff out and decided to create his own. So his philosophy is that people need to have what he calls unconditional positive regard, regardless of the behavior, rather than getting love and acceptance through conditional positive regard, okay? So unconditional positive regard is what he believed in, as opposed to conditional positive regard, all right? Let me tell you how this works. This is very difficult to do. Because you may come up and you may sit there and say, well, sure, I like my patients like me, I'll accept them, period, try it and see what happens, right? Unconditional positive regard, think of it this way, right? I used to work at San Quentin, as you all know, right? So I used to have the patients that were the worst of the worst. Usually the child molesters, wife beaters, batterers, serial killers, mass murderers. That was my population, right? And I would hear their stories on how they would slice somebody's guts open, slice them in the throat, shoot them in the head, gangland style, all of this stuff, or rape a child that's 2 years old, 2 months old, some pretty horrific stuff, okay? So as a Rogerian, what we would do is I would sit there, and if I chose this for my style, I would basically communicate to the person, well, what you did is not acceptable. It's a very bad thing that you did. However, you as a person, I like you. You're a good person. You've got some positive things about you. That's a Rogerian attempt to this. That's basically what Rogers would say. So you basically hate the sin and love the sinner. All right? Unconditional positive regard. No matter what they did, you cared for that person. You didn't care too much for what they did, but you cared for them. And you tried to get across to them that they have the answers if they want to take care of themselves and cure themselves and work through things. Right? So positive regard. Conditional positive regard is, I like you only if you change. Only if you do these certain things, you're a good person. You're not a good person because you did a bad thing. And if you want me to like you, you're going to have to change. That's a condition. That's putting conditions on things. Parents do that all the time with children. Parents will always put a condition, right? You have to do the dishes. If you don't do the dishes, you're not going to have supper. Conditional. You failed the test today. You're just a stupid person. You can't do anything right. Could you? Conditional. If you want me to love you, then you're going to have to get an A in that report card the next time, right? You're the man of the family. Lots of pressure. Could you see how the pathology starts up with this? All right. So the key concept, one source of the disorder is our attempt to become what others want us to be rather than what we really want to be. So a lot of the pathology that came in for Rogerian clients, a lot of the stuff that would come in, let's say, for example, you have a family that's pretty well off, dad happens to be a lawyer, and he's very influential in the family, and you grow up in the family, and sure enough, you want to be a lawyer. So you just go to school, you just become that lawyer, and you working hard and studying hard, and you got your law degree, and you pass the bar exam, and you start a practice, or you go to somebody else's practice, and you become a partner, and you find out that you hate it. That happens with a lot of people. But you want to be just like Dad, because Dad was a lawyer, and now Dad's proud of you because you're a lawyer, and you're sitting there and you're putting on this big facade that you're happy as well, and you hate it. Okay? That's what he's talking about here. So others want us to be something. So therefore we have expectations placed on ourselves by others, and we don't know what the heck we want. So we're not sure who we are or what we are, because other people told us who we are and what we are. And as we start to grow old, and we start to come into ourselves, and we start to discover more things about ourselves, relationship-wise and whatnot, sometimes it works, sometimes we adapt, but sometimes we're miserable. And when we become miserable, we become neurotic, we become sick, right? And then we see pathologies, we see depressions, we see schizophrenias, we see bipolar disorders, we see all of this stuff. Another thing that Rogers did not like about Freud and about the whole idea was diagnosing. He hated diagnostics, right? Why should we diagnose somebody? Because that's just me putting a label on you. So I'm telling you what you should be. Again, what others want us to be. I want you to be depressed. I'm calling you 29630, major depression recurrent. That's what you are. 30300, you're an alcoholic, right? To what end? To what end? So the diagnostics went out the window. The other thing Freud was talking about, just bounce between these two, Freud's analysis and the whole thing about psychoanalysis was Freud's concept of transference and countertransference. See, Freud believed that transference, which is defined basically as the client's past emotional state and problems and difficulties that they have thrown onto you because you represent that person or that entity to them. So as the patient is in therapy, for example, the patient may come up and sit there and say, I hate when you do that because you remind me of my father, right? That's called transference. Freud was transference neurosis. Now, if you respond to that and you sit there and say, well, yeah, I should be your father because I kick your butt and this and that and the other thing, etc., that's called countertransference. So that's the therapist's unresolved issues placed onto the client in response to the client's transference. You got the two? Transference, countertransference, okay? Well, Rogers didn't believe that. Rogers knew that they existed, but he really wouldn't work within the transference or countertransference like Freud would. He wouldn't try to work through the transference and countertransference. Rogers would just sit back and say, if I don't like you, I don't like you. I can't treat you. And that's it. And we would tell the patients, I don't think this is a good match. I'm sorry, but I'm going to refer you to somebody else. Or call your insurance company up and see if you can get someone else because I don't think we're going to work. If it did work, then he would sit there and he would just work with the person and accept them unconditionally for who and what they are. You see, when you're doing analysis, you're dealing with Freud, you can't do that. You can't take somebody for who they are and sit there and say you're a good person. Because if you did something wrong and you're being analyzed, you're bad. And the whole idea of analysis is to get in there and find out why you're bad and to change that if you want to change it. See, Rogers believed that everybody was good, and what they did was due to some interactional, sociological, some type of issues that just couldn't be resolved or one didn't look at long enough. So unconditionally, he worked through it. So again, one source of the disorder was an attempt to become what others wanted us to be, rather than what we wanted to be, what we wanted to become. Okay? So the goal of therapy, the overall goal of person-centered therapy, is to help the person by providing a safe climate conducive to the client's self-exploration. So the whole idea of client-centered therapy was to make the therapeutic milieu, the individual session with the patient, comfortable for them. So for Rogers, and hopefully for you, if you get a chance to do this in your clinic, office landscaping was important. How am I going to make the patient feel comfortable in the session with me? especially if they got a lot of stuff going on. So, I might have a rug on the floor, a coffee pot, for whatever the case may be, maybe nice smelling things going on in the room, some trees, some plants, something inviting. Whereas Freud's was cold as ice. You have a room, nothing on the walls, everything's empty, there's your chair, there's your cot, that's it. Bare floor, maybe a rug, and even the rug was a distraction. Now, Rogers, I want to make you comfortable. Because if you're comfortable with me, you're going to be comfortable with you, we're going to be along with each other, and we'll be able to talk about your issues, right? So, safe climate, a safe climate. He will also talk a lot about confidentiality and everything that's said in session, minus, of course, those things that we need to report. Elder abuse, child abuse, harm to oneself, harm to somebody else, the Tarasov stuff, that type of thing. Other than that, he tried to make it very, very safe. So the therapeutic relationship, if you remember from Freud, it was very distant. The counselor is an equal and uses the qualities of genuineness, warmth, accurate empathy, and respect. Very, very, very important. So, genuineness. I am who I am, a genuine person. This is who I am, this is how I work. What you see is what you get. So there are no errors, no nothing, right? I'm genuine. I will tell you what I need to tell you. Like it or not, this is reality, this is what it is, okay? So even when you have to probe and you have to dig and you have to pull stuff out, some of that stuff is pretty nasty, you put it out there. That's genuineness. Warmth. Rogers, if you're ever watching the video, Rogers is just, the ultimate warm person, right? He'll sit there, tone of voice is very calm, very soothing. He's always leaning forward, looking at the patient, very caring and compassionate. The patient's crying, he's sitting there, doesn't touch the patient, keeps hands off the way he should. But he's over right in the moment with the patient, very much reality-oriented with the patient. It's very grandfatherly, fatherly-like, whatever entity you choose to show the greatest warmth of an individual, that's Carl Rogers. So the genuineness, the warmth, accurate empathy, right? Not sympathy. Sympathy is feeling sorry for a patient. Rogers would never feel sorry for a patient. You got yourself in it. That's the bottom line, right? I don't want you to feel sorry for a patient either, right? There's no need for sympathy. There isn't. Empathy, however, is different. Wearing a person's shoes, walking in another person's shoes. The Native Americans used to say, you want to get to know a person? Walk a mile in their moccasins. That's empathy. Empathy is when you actually can feel what the person is sort of feeling inside. Now, even though Rogers doesn't use this term, the way that I can see empathy working is through countertransference, through my feelings based on what the patient is telling me, through my unresolved issues. But I'm not going to sit there and say, excuse me, but right now we've got some countertransference going on, and I'm starting to feel a little unsettled inside because my ego is being bruised by some of the stuff that you said, because you remind me of my dad who I can't stand, and we had a fight one time, and not too much information, all right? That's not handling your countertransference. But an empathic therapist that knows how to use a countertransference may look something like this, where the patient is talking about something tragic and it's starting to hit the therapist because a therapist went through a similar event in life. So a therapist may sit there during a certain phase of therapy and say, hold on just for a second, how are you feeling right now? If the patient still doesn't work through it, he may sit there and say, I don't know how I'm feeling, I'm not really feeling too much of anything. Therapist turns around and says, well, wow, what you're saying to me is very profound. And I know that if something like that were to happen to me, I may feel a little anxious or sad or hurt inside, to the point of really being tearful. And that may make me angry. By the way, does any of that stuff ring true for you on how you feel right now as you're telling me this? Now, the patient may come around and say, yeah, you got it. That's exactly what I'm feeling. How did you know that? Well, I know it because that's my countertransference. Because I had a certain situation that goes with your situation, and because of that, what winds up happening and occurring is I can connect to that. I am walking a mile in your moccasins. That makes therapy a lot easier for both therapist and client. Okay? That's empathy and respect. Respect for a client is extremely important. I know that when I used to work both in mental health, addictions work, and forensic work, over the years, this was extremely important. Respect for the patient. Never lie to a patient. Never, ever, ever lie to a patient. Never give anything to a patient. Never accept anything from a patient. Right? If you fall in love with a patient, which can happen, you better be very, very careful. You better have good supervision and malpractice insurance. But you better have good supervision, because there's something going on inside you that's very needy. And when that goes on inside you and that countertransference kicks out to that patient, there's going to be some problems and difficulties. And you need to know yourself. It may not just be because they're cute and they're handsome or that type of person. It may be that they're a very needy person and you're a codependent caretaker and you've got to rescue that person. So as you get to know this wonderful person sitting in front of you, you want to have a deeper relationship with them. And as you have a deeper relationship with them, you slowly find yourself falling in love with that patient. Red flag, big problem, okay? Because if you don't keep that in check and you don't know how to work that and manage that appropriately, you're going to have sex with that patient. And what can happen at that point, well, therapy is not only over, but so is your career, all right? So respect that patient at all costs. They don't have to like you, right? And acknowledge that. If you can work with that, that would be great. Because maybe you represent something for that patient in a patient's past life. And if that's the case, that's wonderful. If it's not, work through it and see how that happens. So that was also part of Roger's stuff. So the technique, counseling, very few techniques, right? But it does make use of active listening. We call this attending. There's a certain couple things. Give me 1 second. Here's a chair. And I'm going to lower the screen just a little bit so you can see me here. There we go. So I'm going to show you how to attend. There's a method that I teach. It's called SOLER, S-O-L-E-R, SOLER. So for the SOLER technique, what you do with the patient is, let's say you're the patient. I'm squaring off. I'm right in front of you. I'm squaring off. My feet are flat on the floor, and I'm looking at you. I'm not off to the side like this, or like this, I'm right in front of you. Let's square off. Open is the O. My feet are flat on the floor, as I said. My hands can be on my lap or folded in front of me slightly like that, even though this is close to being closed. But you want to have it open. You want to be open to the patient. Nothing in front of you. Certainly no chairs, no tables, no desks. Get that out of the way, open to the patient. Lean. Now when you lean, move up in your chair and lean forward just like I'm doing right now. I hope you can see it through the darkness of the screen, but just a little bit. What you don't want to do is become intrusive in the lean, like yes. You know what I mean? Like I'm leaning in, I'm listening to you, man. Go ahead. That's bad. You don't want to do that. You just want to get feet on the floor, relax yourself, and lean forward. If you ever saw the video of Carl Rogers working with his client, Gloria, this is how he is through most of the session. He's just sitting there. I see. I understand. Right? So square off, open, lean, eye contact. Look at the patient. Don't start, doing counseling and, scratching yourself, looking around and trying to figure out what's happening and, the grass is green. No, you look at the patient. But watch where you're looking. Be very aware of what you're looking at. Of course, you look away every once in a while. That's a normal thing. You don't want to freak the patient out by staring at them. All right? If you're a male and you're attracted to women and it's a very attractive woman in front of you, and she happens to come in very relaxed, maybe wearing a low-cut blouse or something like that, or she appeals to you in a very attractive manner, please do not stare at body parts. All right? Don't start staring at the breast and Don't start doing that. That's just not appropriate. It's not the thing to do. I'd be very careful what you say and how you address things. If a patient does come in inappropriately dressed, and I had a few of those throughout my 30 years. One time a very well-endowed woman came in and she had a very low-cut blouse and was quite robust, shall I say. And she did not have a bra, and you could see everything. I stopped the session. I asked her to please, if she wants to come and see me, she was more than welcome, but we cannot have the session today because her attire was inappropriate. That's just what I said. I said, I'm sorry, but your attire is inappropriate unless you have like a jacket or something to put on, because I cannot concentrate on what I'm doing. And you shouldn't be here with that. And then I'd send her away. She'd come back and I'd say, let's talk about last week. What happened to you last week? What were you thinking? And I would process that session, right? So again, honesty. This is who I am. Other therapists would sit there and have an entire session and start staring and doing all kinds of weird stuff, and you don't want to do that. Square off, open, lean, eye contact, and most of all, relax. Sit back and relax. If you're agitated and you're anxious and you're talking to the patient, you start doing this kind of stuff with the patient, what do you think the patient's going to do? The patient's going to act out. The patient's going to be that way, right? So, square off, open, lean, eye contact, and relax. That's going to be very important for you as a Rogerian. Okay? The next thing involved is Gestalt therapy. We'll talk about this a little bit, and then after that is finished, we'll take a little break. So this is Fritz Perls. Fritz Perls believed in Gestalt therapy, that people can deal effectively with problems by fully experiencing them now. So one of the things that Perl believed in was a right here and now. Very Buddhist centered, if you will, even though he was Jewish, right? Obviously, Perls. So he was very, very self-centered. So what he would do is he would sit there and look at the person. Whatever the person did, he would point that out and exaggerate it. So he'd sit there with somebody that would be, maybe closing their hands like this and say, what are you doing right there? What are you doing? You're rubbing your hands. I want you to really rub your hands and tell me what that's about. What does it feel like? Rub your hands harder. There you go. Right. You're tapping your leg. What's that tapping your leg? Tap your leg more. I want you to really exaggerate that. Tell how you feel with that. And he would do things like this throughout the session. Again, there's a really nice video with Rogers, with Fritz Perls, and Albert Ellis, and Gloria. If I didn't show it to you last week, then I will definitely show it to you when I come back and I teach you how to do group therapy in the next mod. Because the next mod is just going to piggyback on this one. So his thing is people can deal effectively with problems if they stay in the right here and now. See, a lot of people, what Perls found out, is a lot of us are dealing with the unconscious and things that happened in the past. And all that past stuff comes up. And the more that it comes up, the more problematic it is for us, because we live in the past. What he was sitting there and saying is, no, stop that. We need to focus on the right here and now, and tell me what you need to work through right here and now. Let's take a look at the past, only to work on the present and to make it a better future. Because if you don't deal with the past, you're doomed to live it. So as you're in the present, you stay within the present form, but you also learn to work with what's happening in the past. So patients are to take personal responsibility for what's happening now. I don't want to hear, as a Gestaltan, I don't want to hear, I'm this way because my dad did this, my mom did that. No. You did this because you're choosing to do this. If you choose to do it, you need to admit that you're choosing to do it, and you either accept it or you don't. If you don't accept it, change it, and we'll show you how to change it. If you can't accept it, then you must be happy. You must be enjoying it, right? So one of the patients I had in the past, the way I played Gestalt therapist with the individual, so was a so-called cocaine addict. No matter what I would do, he would not stop using cocaine. He would come in, he'd quit for a few days, and then he'd get back on the pipe and, go back. And then when he wasn't using cocaine, he'd use marijuana. Then one day, I just sat there and I about had it. His excuses and everything else. And I was very calm. And I sat there, and let's call him Bill. Okay? I sat there and I says, Bill, let me ask you something. I says, how long have you been in session? About 3 months now, right? Yeah. Okay. I really haven't seen too much improvement from you. Oh, look what you're doing right now. From the first day you walked in, you came in and you're rocking back and forth. What I want you to do is I want you to rock back and forth all the more. I really want you to rock back and forth for me, right? How's it make you feel? Really exaggerate that, I want you, how's that make you feel? And he told me how it made him feel, right? He was a little bit anxious because of my question, so his rocking soothed him. That's called self-soothing. I says, oh, okay. I says, tell me how you feel when you're doing cocaine. How do you feel? Oh, I feel guilty. No. How do you feel when you're doing it? Not after you're doing it, when you're doing it. Because if you felt guilty when you were doing it, you wouldn't do it. You feel guilty afterwards. So how do you feel when you're doing cocaine? High. Explain high to me. Show me what high is. Show me. So you just got done doing the rock. Show me what you look like. I really want you to show me what high looks like. And he went through it. Believe me, it was fascinating. The giddiness, the laughter, and the thought processes out on planet Zircon somewhere. I mean, this guy was just marvelous at it. I sat there and said, so, looks to me like you got it down pretty good when you're not using. I said, you like using cocaine? Yeah, I like using it. Yeah, I don't want to, but I like using it. I didn't ask you I asked you if you like it, not if you wanted to. You like it? He goes, yeah, it's okay. I said, then keep doing it. He looked at me like I was, what do you mean keep doing it? I said, keep doing it. I said, because obviously, you like it. And if you like it, the reward is there, so keep using it. When you decide that you don't want to use it anymore, then you come back and we'll talk about you not using it. But until that time, there's nothing more I can do for you. Because you like it too much, and you won't go to meetings, you won't stop using it, you won't go into a rehab, you make 1,001 excuses. So that's telling me that you're not ready yet to go into recovery. So you're still using. So I'm here for you. I got no problem with that, but I can't treat you if you continue to use because it's a moot point. Well, he looked at me and turned blanched. That's what he did. And he says, no, I got to do something. I can't do this anymore. I said, well, you tell me what you want me to do. Tell me what you want. Or I'll go to a rehab. Okay, tell me what it would look like in a rehab. What do you think a rehab would look like for you? And then we roleplay a little bit, right? That's my interpretation of pearls. But he points things out right there immediately. So keep on saying, take responsibility for your actions. Don't go blaming somebody else, for what's happening at this point. And that's where he was with that. Patients are to gain awareness of what they experience in the present situation and accept responsibility for themselves. So the patient needs to explore themselves in the present, and they need to accept themselves in the present for whom and for what they are. That's it. You accept yourself, then you can work through, because now all the facades are down. That's the whole idea of this. Break down the facades. Don't tell me somebody that you're not. I want to know who you are. So what I do is I ask two questions. What do you want, and what do you really want? If you tell me as a drug addict, tell me what you want, and you tell me I'm cold, I want to be sober and clean, I can't treat you. I'll tell you I can't treat you. Why not? That's what I want. No, it's not what you want. Think about it. What do you want as a drug addict and alcoholic? What does every drug addict and alcoholic want? Right? What do they want? Well, they want to be high. I can treat that. Because now you're staying in the present. Doc, I can't take this anymore. I've got to use. I want to get high. That's what I want to do. That's what okay. And what do you really want? This is the hardest question. Because the answer you usually get is what I really want is I really want to stay clean and sober. Can't treat that either. Because that's not what you really want. But the answer to what you really want is, I really want to get to know who I am and why I do the things that I do. I need to look at me to become a better person. That's what I want. That's what I really want. That's at the heart of Gestalt therapy. So patients are aware of what they experience in the present situation, accept responsibility for themselves. The counselor is a guide, doesn't interrupt the client's experience, doesn't necessarily discuss it, doesn't necessarily argue with it, just points it out, lets the person discuss it, and again, Fritz Perls was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud. Okay. So the counselor uses confrontation, which means meets inconsistencies and issues right to the face. No punches are pulled. So Gestalt is useful with individuals and groups. The client specifically identifies each element of the whole. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So if we take a person and we split the person up, we talk about the different aspects of that individual, the different parts of the person, good, bad, indifferent, whatever it may be, right? I'm the person that's generous sometimes, but I also hateful, and a great lover, and argumentist, and a scholar, and this and that, and whatever you want. Those are all parts of what make you up. So we take a look at those areas, and we try to integrate those parts to show you who you are, so that you don't have to be the parts. You can just be you. All right? Okay, let's take a break here, and I'll see you in our usual time in 15 minutes. And so pause the tape here and come back.